to think how much material that used to be on paper now is virtual, like the newspaper. I lived in Olympia, Washington. We had a newspaper, daily newspaper there called The Olympian. And I watched, since the 2008 turndown, I was working in magazine merchandising. So I'm really paying attention to magazines and newspapers and how the publishing industry was affected by this global economic turndown. And one of the things that happened is so much of these materials went virtual. And, you have to cut a lot of trees and make a lot of paper to make a lot of magazines and make a lot of newspapers. And I used to come home with pretty sore hands pulling, the old issues out and putting the new issues in at my merchandising job. And my hours were cut from 21 hours to 9. So I had a half-time job. And I went down to 9 hours because people didn't buy magazines. If they bought a magazine, let's say, it changed hands one person to the next rather than everybody People magazine, let's say, was a good example, or Newsweek was an interesting example as well. And Oprah magazine was very interesting. Oprah's or Vogue, they were the biggest, thickest ones. They were like an inch thick. And if you get one now, it's more like a third of an inch thick. Well, a lot of things in all these publishing companies' material, they'll say, go to our site online for more information, rather than putting it in the magazine. My grandma got Newsweek, and she was frustrated with it because she says it's just a pamphlet now. It went to a staple back, very, very thin magazine, and we were stacking less and less and less because that's a certain demographic, an older demographic that would read Newsweek. Also, just the sheer number of magazines I put out went down, the sheer thickness, sometimes the size, sometimes they knock the size down. This happened with our newspaper. I'm reading my newspaper and realizing it's like 4 inches skinnier, like what the heck? And the paper got thinner and thinner, less advertisement, as the recession went on. And then they did this odd thing. They took the funny papers, the comics and horoscopes and all of that, and made it on really super thick paper. And I'm like, why do they do that? And I realized that, when they put the newspaper in the bin, if they didn't have that thick piece of paper in there, the paper would be so thin it would squash down. It would wrinkle up, So that was its way of staying kind of stiff until somebody bought it from the bin. So we've had this, that's just one of many industries changing because of technology, and robotics. Or virtual robotics is just breathing down our necks of our jobs. And now we don't have what we need to provision our households, right? So that's, so most of us are tightening our belt, downsizing, what have you, and have been doing that for a while. And normally when I was taught macroeconomics, we have a cycle, The Great Depression's instructive because everything stalled out then, too. And they basically had to do the New Deal. And a lot of people attribute the start of World War II as getting the economy going again, which is appalling. I wouldn't want us to start a war just to get our economy going again. But that's a big industry, military industry, big industry, employs a lot of people. So, yeah, we need some new ideas. And so when you think in terms of provisioning your household, it doesn't matter where that provisioning comes from. Okay, it doesn't matter if you buy the thing, like you buy your shelf or you buy your food or whatever. That's provisioning. If you thrift, that's provisioning. If you trade, that's provisioning. And if you make it yourself, that's provisioning. So here's all these different ways we provision. And as this economy continues to stall out, we're seeing, and also changes in technology, we're now seeing the maker economy coming in. And the maker economy is fascinating. It's kind of a younger demographic, or it's a whole new level of DIY of people, looking at the situation and trying to, humans get up and do stuff, okay, just because they don't have a job. there's a whole working economy that does not involve a job. Okay, it's when somebody takes care of children or elderly. It's when somebody, makes something or volunteers for their community, ourselves and our families. This is the end of part 1. Again, thank you so much for listening to this program. I am observing with Karen Christine Patrick. I really appreciate it that you have come this far with me for this space of time. Thanks to the musician Jazzar, my favorite composer, from freemusicarchive.org for the wonderful music in this program. Please visit my Facebook group, I, as in EYE, am observing, and let's keep the conversation going. This program was brought to you by Isagenix, now with dairy-free, GMO-free, delicious protein shakes. I drink one every day. I am pursuing optimum health and well-being. Contact me on my page, isagenix.com/KC Patrick. Finally, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow said of the creative spirit, "Thine was the prophet's vision, thine the exaltation, the divine insanity of noble minds, that never falters nor abates, but labors and endures and waits, till all it foresees it finds, or what it cannot find creates."